about the earth uses the phrase holy instant. That phrase was coined by A Course in Miracles. So here you have a marriage between Unity's writings and the Course in Miracles. It usually doesn't take place, actually, but a holy instant is a beautiful phrase. It simply means it's hard to describe. There is a moment. In every moment there's a moment. And in God's realm, that's all that exists. And that moment includes everything that's ever happened and everything that will happen. But here we see things sequential. And when we enter into meditation and enter this other world called the holy instant, then we're in this realm where time and space and fear and all the rest of it is non-existent. So the holy instant, that phrase, has a lot of meaning, and it's a beautiful way of putting it in to what we have to say about the earth. So this is, I wrote this talk a year ago, hoping that someone would get sick and I'd get to give the Easter sermon. Well, that didn't happen, but it's been hanging around for a year, and and I'm going to enjoy giving this. So I remember there was a number of years ago, me and Cheryl were spending a quiet evening together, celebrating our anniversary. And I called her across the room to her. I say, "Hey, Cheryl, where will we be 1 million years from now?" And she goes, just like that, without even looking up or looking in my direction. She was busy frosting a cake. Now that will tell you how long ago that was, because she doesn't frost cakes nowadays. I have to go to the restaurant if I want one. And I do. But then all of a sudden she startled me. She put down her spatula, she walked up to me, and she grabbed me by the lapel of my coat, stood on her toes so she could look me right in the eye, and she said, "I only know I want to be with you 1 million years from now. And can we have the kids over for breakfast just as we do now? And may we work on crafts together, and can you sing your latest song to me just as we do now? And may we have a cottage on the beach. And can you save for that cottage, the one overlooking the beautiful ocean? And will you keep saving for it? Save for it until we can get enough. Promise me. Really, promise me. Say yes, say yes, say yes. Say yes." And so I said yes. I was trapped. But truth be told, a promise with 1 million years to make it good didn't seem like I needed to worry about it a lot, too much. So I was kind of like just talking out loud to myself, and I said, if I save $10 a year, that's not too much. In 1 million years, I'd have $10 million, and that should buy a mansion on the beach. She goes, "Nah, too much. Just a cottage."
Aww.
So about the same time, my mother lived in my house. I don't recommend that. Oh. She was very interesting. And when Easter Day came and she learned that we weren't going to have an Easter egg hunt, she was flabbergasted. Now, flabbergasted is an interesting word. It really describes her attitude at this instant. She insisted on what she called the hunt. And she held her ground until I slunk off to the store and bought some candy eggs. Now my kids, all young adults at that time, considered themselves too old for such things, but they put on a good smile for Grandma and did the hunt. And Grandma beamed with pleasure, most likely in remembrance of the days gone by when Larry performed this Easter ritual she called the hunt. She died at the age 100. May she smile down upon us this day and send whisperings from heaven to her son. Don't forget the hunt. In Easter. Is Easter a day for searching for eggs? Well, of course. But there's a reason behind the hunt. It's the promise of eternal life. This phrase means something to each of us, something different to each of us, I would guess. It seems as if it was only yesterday when my little daughter Becky came rushing up to me, throwing her arms around me, and she said, "Daddy, did you know it's only 3 more days till Easter?" I assured her that I did. And then with an anxious look, she wanted to know what this was all about. So I took a moment to visit. We talked about eternal life, what that meant. She's dead now. Whoops. I still get a little messed up with that. But, the neighbor run her over. It was an accident, but she's gone. So this morning, or you might say last year's morning when I wrote this, but this morning I revisited some of our conversation, which didn't seem too pressing at the time, but now that she's been dead these long years, the promise of eternal life is looking more important to me. The promise that we, Becky and I, will someday be reunited. There are some truths which I have come to over the years, which I will share with you this morning. First of all, the promise of eternal life is universal, available to all, no matter what religion we advocated while living here. We take birth for granted and look towards death with apprehension. Why is that? I would say that our existence before birth is just as mysterious as life after death. We rejoice at the arrival of a newborn, extending our family circles just that much more for love to be given and received. When a loved one passes on, the family is left behind. The circle of their love seems broken. They grieve, standing together, looking at each other, wistfully asking with their eyes, will we ever see them again? The human spirit shrinks from extinction. It refuses to believe that the departed have vanished like the flame of a burnt out candle. I believe that death is not extinguishing the light, but putting out the lamp, because the dawn has come. Night never has the last word. The dawn is irresistible. That's the first truth I want to share with you. Life is eternal. Here's the second truth. We've been talking about the afterlife as a time to meet departed loved ones. It's also a time to continue the task of expanding and renewing our soul, which we have been working on here. When I go down to the grave, I can say, like many others, I have finished my day's work. But I cannot say I have finished my life's work, for life goes on forever. The tomb is not a blind alley. It is an open thoroughfare. There is no deadline, no judgment day. You go at your own pace. Now I'm going to repeat that. Most everything I say in these talks, I make sure that these are the unity teachings, and this is one that's one of their really strong ones. The only person who judges is us. So here it is. There is no deadline, no judgment day. You go at your own pace. You're working on you. And who said that? Nishta? Something about nobody's, don't mind. What do you say that about minding your business?
What I'm doing is none of my business.
Yes, what I'm doing is none of my business. I love that. So, you just go along at your own pace and it will come. Benjamin Franklin said, life is rather like an embryo, a preparation for life. A man is not completely born until he has passed through death. But, what about resurrection of physical immortality? Job, a character from Jewish literature, asked the same question. If a man die, shall he live again? He answered his own question thus: though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see God. What does this mean to you? Charles Fillmore believed in the literal resurrection of the physical body. Others do not, such as Emily Cady. This is the beauty of unity. This is what unity is. This is why we're gathered. Unity is a gathering of people from many religions, with many viewpoints, for the noble purpose of finding our common beliefs. For I truly, truly believe that tolerance for others is a godlike attribute, one that we should put first and cultivate. For me, the real question is whether or not I'll see my departed Becky again. Well, of course I will. Love is stronger than death. What is love? On one occasion, Jesus was questioned by one of the scribes, "What is the great commandment in the law?" In reply, Jesus taught this eternal truth: "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There was no other commandment greater than these," taught Jesus. Even though changing conditions exist in the world today, and many people are confused, the application of this one principle in our everyday life will bring happiness, contentment, and peace. Surely, if I love my fellow man, I will not cheat them, lie about them, or commit any manner of evil against them. Instead, I will find happiness, contentment, and peace that surpasseth all understanding. Paul was inspired to reveal the virtues, or maybe call them ingredients, of which love is composed. Love suffereth long and is kind. Remember, there's no such thing as a small act of kindness. Every act creates a ripple with no logical end. So be kind whenever possible. It is always possible. Love envieth not. In poverty, she is envious. In riches, she's a snob. Money does not change the sickness, only the symptoms. Therefore, make it your daily walk to do kind things that come from the heart. When you do, you won't be dissatisfied. You won't be envious. You won't be longing for somebody else's things. On the contrary, you'll be overwhelmed with what comes back. So I'll just interject a thought, listening to Marv's talk last week. It's not about the money, rich or poor. It has nothing to do with that. It's in our heart, how we feel, how we love. The rest of it is irrelevant. If we seek for a good life, then so be it. I have a good life. Anyways. Love vaulteth not itself, is not puffed up. In other words, love teaches true humility. Humility is royalty without the crown. I love that phrase. St. Augustine said, "Do you wish to rise? Begin by descending. Do you plan a tower that will pierce the clouds? First lay the foundation of humility. It was pride that changed angels into devils. It is humility that makes men as angels." Love doth not behave itself unseemingly. Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. These three virtues are every bit a part of love as kindness. Love seeketh not her own. We are to lose ourselves in the service of others, and in so doing, we will find ourselves. What constitutes greatness? The Greek philosopher Pericles, many centuries ago, pondered this question and finally arrived at this conclusion. Men who are longest remembered and whose memories are most highly revered are not those who made the most money, but those whose hearts were gentle, whose sympathies were broad, and who best served humanity. What is all this saying? Seek oneness with God. The journey inward. Seeking oneness with God, the journey inward, is found by seeking and demonstrating the ingredients of love. To internalize them, to express them outward. This is our journey. This is the purpose of life. I'm going to say that again, because that's really, really important. Seeking oneness with God, the journey inward, is found by seeking and demonstrating these ingredients of love. To internalize them, make them who you really are, and then express them outward. This is our journey. This is the purpose of life. In the words of Emmanuel, investigate love until you know there is no other way to exist. And lastly, Paul said that love is not easily provoked. Love thinketh no evil, and love rejoiceth not in iniquity, but in truth. Paul, we see, had a deep understanding regarding this great principle of love and the blessings to be attained by those who would honor and recognize them. For he said, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither hath entered into the heart of men the things which God hath prepared for them that love him. Oh, I'm going to tell you a story. Carol Gray was a mother, a young mother. She had 4 young daughters and a husband who loved her. She became very ill. She began to lose weight. And one day she looked in the mirror. Her teeth were protruding. That would scare me. The doctors informed her that she was dying of cancer and had about 12 weeks to live. Nothing they could do would save her. Those weeks were very traumatic for Carol and her family, but also transforming. When you look death squarely in the face, your priorities fall into place. You realize that there are many things in your life that are not necessary. With Carol, she never became angry at her children again. When she looked at her husband, she felt a tenderness and deep gratitude. She learned to fill every second of her life with what mattered most. And what was that?
Spending time with her family.
Love.
Love.
Carol's home truly became a little bit of heaven on earth. And she expressed that love by spending her time with her family. A wonderful doctor performed an experimental operation. Oh, after all, she was dying anyways. What the heck? Let's just dig in there and let's see what we can do. They cut out this, and they changed this around, and they tied things in knots, and she lived. That radical operation saved her life. Carol is now a mass of metal and rubber tubing. Imagine what happens when she tries to go through the airport. Even back, Anyways, she lived. In Carol's words, I am a miracle, a medical miracle, and quite regularly they haul me into a conference room like a specimen in a glass jar to prove that this operation can work if the patient is very, very fortunate. We often talk about finding the teaching moments with our children, where you can sit down and have a chat and actually listen. And well, this period was Carol's perfect moment for being taught by God. She drew very, very close to him and learned to recognize the promptings of the Spirit. What is this Spirit? The answer is only going to be one thing throughout the rest of this talk. Love. Eternal love. I say that phrase as if there's there is any other kind of love, but there isn't. Love is eternal. It's its nature. It's a complete package. It's what God is. Don't wait for a life-changing event to push you there as it did with Carol Gray. Do it now. Do it today. Do it as if your life depended on it. Do what?
Love.
There you go. Oh my goodness. You'll say, he talked about love, but I don't know anything about what else. What else did he say? I hope you can remember some of this. The English statesman William Gladstone said, "We look forward to the time when the power of love will replace the love of power. Then will our world know the blessing of peace." We are living in a world of automation. Machines are taking over our jobs. Oh, it's going to get worse. The way things are going, we had better learn to do things that machines can't do. To love each other, for instance. In the words of Jesus, "A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you. That ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another." Love is the essential nature of God. It is his life's blood, and we, the souls of humanity, are like a garment which love dons, so it can be visible in this world, so it can move about and do the works of love. Living such a life as this, one embraced by the love of our Creator, is enough. We do not have to die to be immortal. We are immortal now. When we think of life in terms of time, we lose the truth of its greatness. Anything you will ever be, you already are. The greatness of the infinite is already evolved in you. Resurrection is simply a waking up, a new insight into self. And Eric Butterworth said that. Eric had a large congregation of thousands, 5,000 I think it was, in Texas, Austin, Texas, and a radio show which thousands listened to. And he said this. Anyone who's interested in knowing what the Unity Church believed in the second generation after Charles and the rest of them had died, Eric Butterworth gives a very good accounting of that. So, back to Easter. It is Easter. We're talking about Easter. Is Easter a day for searching for hidden eggs? Of course, but there is a reason behind the hunt. It's the promise of eternal life. And so, these truths I leave with you today. Life is eternal, as is our journey of personal transformation. And lastly, God is love. Therefore, we are love. The words of the Lord as expressed through Isaiah. Awake, awake. Put on thy strength, O Zion. Put on thy beautiful garments, O Jerusalem. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, and saith unto Zion, Thy God reigneth. How does God reign? By filling our hearts with love. By living through us as a conscious receptor of his love. We are the Word made flesh who lives among us. Be that, and allow God to reign upon this earth through you. Now, for meditation today, I'd like to sing a song, followed by silence, to give you some time to contemplate the meaning of my sermon and song, and how the ideas that I've expressed today can be applied to your life.